Psych evaluation says Kenneck should return to duty never.
Never? Well, that is a long time.
I don't know if our delivery was quite the same, but we tried.
Well, Carl Urban, I can't do it.
Can't beat that.
Can't.
Not even with a stick.
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Science Fiction Remnant. I am your host, Robert.
I am your host, Robert, too.
Robert number 2.
We got Robert and Robot. And I'm Ray, the mad scientist down in Australia, being all mad and stuff because it's cold in winter.
Oh my God. This is awesome. So we have a question, right?
Oh, with 20% more awesome.
There is a question that is being formulating right now in the famous lab of our mad scientist. And the question is, isn't trilogy?
What have you been watching this week?
Oh God, I love it. I love it.
I told you I wouldn't remember. I never remember.
I love it.
Who am I again? I am Robert.
Yeah, we're on our journey. The Star Trek rewatch is on I believe we're on season 4 now, episode 8. So it's getting good. And if I can my wife was a little mad because we got to the point, I can't remember which episode it was, Worf wife. And this is going to be a spoilers for whoever hasn't watched this, but it's been so long that I hope that it wouldn't be a spoiler anymore. But she dies, and she was upset that she dies. So
I thought that she died because she was upset.
So but we get to
that's all it took. My wife would have died.
But we get to see Alexander, the kid, the little Klingon kid. So it's all good. So what about you?
They should have brought him back for Picard.
Yes,
as an adult.
That would have been awesome.
Too late now.
Yeah, too late.
I could do an OVA.
I'm all for it. I'm game.
You could always give a little bit more to Ray. He won't complain.
So, Gio, what have you been watching? Sci-fi related?
Sci-fi, nothing much, bro.
Nothing much?
Been watching documentaries.
Any sci-fi documentaries or space documentaries or
about AI? Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that counts.
Yeah, that counts. That definitely counts.
Time traveling, UFOs, hyperdimensional travel, all that stuff. You guys saw the news of the guy that with radio frequencies open another dimension with sound waves?
That's been around for a while. It was a video. It's really interesting. So, Gio is trying to look for sci-fi in reality. So that's why he goes to documentaries.
Well, then he can do the science behind science fiction this week because he's been, boning up on it.
Whoa, you guys find a way to push me again.
No, we didn't push you, man. We just both stepped back in unison.
We're slowly,
yeah, it's great.
Slowly stepping back.
You ready? 3, 2, 1, run!
Oh wow. How about you, Ray?
Me? We actually
watching this week.
I have been watching an anime called Love Flops. Yes, I know it sounds like it should be on the Hentai channel, but no.
The episode. What have you been watching that is not anime?
there are things you can watch that aren't anime.
Hey, oh, you know, that reminds me. I've been watching Psycho in Netflix.
Mob Psycho.
No.
I haven't watched it, and I know what you're watching.
No, but it's not Mob.
Not Psycho Mob 100?
No, it's not Mob. No, it doesn't have Mob in the title.
Okay, camera, behave.
I don't know.
Got it.
Right.
No, well, anyway, this anime Love Flops is very interesting because it looks like it's a harem anime, but halfway through, and this is a spoiler, so like stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 for the next 15 seconds if you plan to watch this anime and don't want to know the surprise. But halfway through, you discover that the guy has been plugged into an artificial reality for a couple of months that's based on his life, because he's testing the interaction between himself and 5 AIs which think they're girls.
Okay.
And basically the setup is that they start living with him and he's supposed to pick one of them to marry. His father set it up, but actually it's an artificial reality, kind of like the Matrix, and he's plugged into it and he doesn't know that he's plugged into it, and he thinks that they're real. And like in episode 7, I think it is, he discovers that they're AI and that he won't get to see them again. He's pretty bummed about it.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it was pretty full on.
Hey Gio, I don't know if you can see my screen share. That's basically what I'm watching.
I tried to watch that with my son. Oh, it's just maddening, that one.
He's OP, all right.
Yeah, but the humor's a little bit lowbrow, I thought. But then you like Beavis and Butthead, so it might be perfect.
So that was a sci-fi anime, actually. So that's why you guys reminded me when you mentioned anime. Awesome.
Yeah, I haven't finished watching that one yet, so I got to find out what the punchline is. Oh, really? There's my cybernetic implant going off again. God damn it.
Oh, God. Overglorified.
Hey,
diabetes.
Cyberpunk. There you go.
We're diabetes, all in. Bro. No cyberpunk. Diabetes.
Hey, that's how it started, man. That's how it started. What would be
cool? Diabetes punk?
No,
is that a thing?
Already sweet dreams when he goes to sleep.
That's an alarm telling me that I'm too excited about recording with you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our cue to go to our first segment. We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is Sci-Fi.
And like our Captain Chaos says, you know the drill. This is the segment that we highlight the hashtag This is Sci-Fi. And if this is the first time you hear our show, this is where we send you an invitation to follow the hashtag.
And engage with it.
Engage with it, have a conversation, and post. Because this is the hashtag that we created that gives you the opportunity to share your sci-fi love. Just like any of us have a specific thing. I mean, not necessarily, we all have like more than one, but there's that one thing that you love most at anything else. And you can share it and engage in conversation with other people that love the same thing you do, which is great. You have a common interest and you have a great conversation. And B, someone that might not otherwise know that existed, and then it becomes a discovery factor for that person. And maybe you gain just one more person that you can have a conversation with. So you guys want to follow it, you guys want to post. If you're a creator, if you're a fan,
use it if you're doing a post that is related to sci-fi.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
lately, and if you, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but we started posting articles on our website.
Yeah.
This is sciencefictionremnant.com, and all of those posts, I usually make make a post of the articles in there, so you can go into our website and read the articles. We just finally have our very first contributor. So basically, I'm gonna also, in addition to me writing the articles, and eventually you might see some articles by our very own Captain Chaos and our very own mad scientist eventually. But I want to provide an avenue for those who love to write articles about sci-fi. So if you're not familiar, if you like to be involved, if you're not familiar with the process, go ahead and DM me or reach out to me, and I'll go ahead and get you started in the process. There's obviously some things that you have to kind of like check the boxes before so you know what we're looking for. But I'm just trying to make a way to help the community in a way, and help the sci-fi genre altogether. So we have our very own first contributor to the site, and that article is going to be posted soon. So you guys are going to be, if you guys follow us, you're going to see that eventually. Just so you guys know, we post every Sunday in the morning Eastern time. So if you don't want to miss it, I suggest you guys subscribe to our newsletter. It is, if you go to sciencefictionremnant.com and scroll just slightly down to the right, you'll see the form. You just put in your email address and submit. And then you'll never miss an article. But yeah, we're basically just posting in the articles. And we have, like always, we have conversations about not only just different topics, but also different art episodes that we had done previously on the show. So I invite you guys to engage with us and just keep the conversation going. Anything you guys want to add for this week on This is Sci-Fi?
I'll bring a total alien on Twitter this week.
Hey, that's sci-fi.
It is quite literally.
But
We're still flagged as explicit, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I've just got one thing
yeah.
to say to you. It's 2 words: Wookiee dick.
It's like a Wookiee dick is like a hairy micro penis.
Dude, you can't speak to it, Captain Chaos, because you have been an alien in Twitter this week. But if you ever go in, you'll see what we're talking about.
Will this get our video banned if I show them what was?
Yeah, we probably will, because we're on YouTube. So
I don't think I can do that. But if you follow the hashtag, you too can experience the thrill of number 675569.
Yeah, very much. So
From
there you go. You have one more reason to follow the hashtag.
That's right. If you found the idea of Wookiee dick enticing, then you can follow that hashtag. Wow. I don't know where they got that from. I'm only reporting the news. I don't make it. Don't shoot the messenger.
Oh, wow. So, Ray, are we ready to do another push on Captain Chaos?
Shout out.
And first and foremost, let me remember everybody that we're part of the Blind Knowledge Network. Go and check them out. They have a great variety of content creators. You can find them in all our social medias, or you can go to www.blindknowledgenetwork.com. Our first person is JimmyEvans. Thanks for all the engagement. Everybody can find him on Twitter at JimmyEvans4 real. Next, OZ9 Podcast. Thanks for all the support, guys. And cool podcast, actually. Everybody go and check them out.
Yeah, I listen to it every week.
They're great. Kelly Szentgyorgyi. And everybody can find her at Antipodal. Great supporter from all time. Thanks for always being part of our conversations, Kelly. And last but not least, the FSF PopCast, our role model for podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody go and check them out.
And Tim, I want to be like you when I grow up, man. I keep on saying that in every episode.
And that's all for all today.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's go ahead and move on to the next segment.
The Outer Remnant.
And we already know Captain Chaos has been MIA from Twitter.
Yeah.
You haven't been anywhere.
Nowhere.
Yes. Same for me. Aside from Star Trek, I haven't really been anywhere. So where have you been? Ray, I wonder.
Well, Geo might be the fall guy, but I'm the fall back guy. So, yeah, well, you know, I hang out in the Elite Army channel, doing what I can to get a sequel. There was some news this week that rumors going around that James Cameron might have to take over the reins of directing the sequel to get the green light to get money out of Disney, but I don't know if that's true or not. It's a rumor. So I prefer, you know, Rodriguez to be at the helm. He did a great job on the first movie, and I think he should continue on. But, you know, if Cameron was involved a bit more, that wouldn't be a bad thing, because Rodriguez was making a Cameron-style movie when he directed Alita, so it wouldn't be too far out of the park. But, you know, you wouldn't take the guy that's making you billions of dollars with Avatar movies off the Avatar movies to make something else. You just wouldn't. It'd be stupid. So we think that rumor is bogus. But anyway. But yeah, we were discussing that in the news section of Radio Chaos episode 164, the topic of which was, what do you think Rosa Salazar will bring to the character of Alita in Alita 2? And it was a very interesting discussion. We had a good time. So check that one out on the Alita Army channel. It's the latest live stream recording, which is up there now that you could have a listen to. Well, actually, it's the latest of this recording, but by the time this comes out, we'll have had a few other things probably come after it, because, of course, we record these things in advance because we're organized. Thanks to Robert. Yeah, Robert.
I try. I really do.
Yeah, you are trying.
Okay, so the topic of this episode.
I want to know how I missed this show. I never heard of it before. I was today years old when I first saw it, and I went, well, shit, I should have seen this earlier. It's 10 years old. I couldn't believe it.
It is funny that you mentioned that, because to everyone that I have so far, right, you know, someone going forward might be able to prove me wrong. But so far, every time that I mention this show, for some reason, they want to confuse it with this other show. I think it's a British show about a vampire and
a vampire, a ghost, and a werewolf.
What is the? I haven't seen that show, so I don't even know.
I've seen that show,
but people want to.
But it's called Becoming Human.
Exactly. So I'm like, no, it's not. It's not that. It's Almost Human.
Well, you know, there's 3 movies of that name.
Yeah.
And I had to hunt to actually get the Wikipedia for this show, because it was buried under these other movies.
And you know, I can tell you, I saw this when it was first aired. I can't remember, and this was back in 2013. Let me see. Yeah, 2013. I can remember which channel it was. But I remember I was like, oh my God, this is an amazing show. And watched the entire thing, which is 13 episodes, only to find out that it didn't do well and they canceled it. So I was really upset, because I really, really loved the story. And I don't know if I'm partial to stories that involved, you know, the robotic psyche. I mean, we did an episode on human. We did an episode on becoming human, which is another game. But I was really upset. I don't.
If you look at the rise of Chat GPT just in the last 6 months, and like Mid Journey and all these AI driven open source things that you can connect to on the internet anytime you want, it is a hot topic right now, and there's people worried about losing their jobs, and it's all sorts of issues. I mean, there's a meme going around about programmers being safe because clients can't express what they want in a program succinctly, so the AI won't be able to understand it. And my good friend Doc Joe, who works in IT advisory, he works as part of an IT advisory service, and he said that meme is 100% wrong, because you can iterate on Chat GPT and it will program for you. You tell it what you want, and then you go, oh, no, that's not quite right. It needs to do more of this, and it will adjust the programming for you. And the programming that would cost you like $800 and like 6 or 8 hours can be done in 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It is scary fast, because the AI doesn't have to go and look up the calls and work out the syntax. It just spits it out so fast. I think those programmers really need to pull their socks off, because they're in trouble.
Yeah. But yeah, this going back to the show, it's surprising to me, and I honestly don't know if this was a marketing thing, because I can't really figure out why a show might get more publicity than others when it comes to views. And it all comes down to, in my mind, marketing, because you don't know how the show is going to be. I mean, if you tell me, okay, yeah, that it didn't do good because the show sucked. Well, yeah, eventually that is right, because you might have a good marketing on it. A lot of people start watching the show, and then eventually, it just dies out because the show is bad. But this show, it was continuously like this, and I can't figure out, because the show was good. And I'm kind of curious to hear eventually, Ray, your thoughts if you continue watching the show.
I'm going to. This show's right up my alley. It's great.
So yeah, it's one of those, I scratch my head. It's like, why did they cancel? I guess I know why they canceled it. They didn't have enough views, but why people weren't aware of this show?
Well, like I said, I'd never heard of it, and I'm always hunting for good sci-fi content, so I'm really surprised that I've never heard of it. It was just wasn't out there. There was no buzz about it. I'd never heard of it. And like Carl Urban's not a small-time actor. Having him headlining a show, you would think you'd hear about it.
It has a great freaking cast. I mean, starting with Carl Urban, right? We got Michael Early, Minka Kelly, Michael Irby. I mean, come on. Hero. I mean, Gio, we were watching this earlier with Gio on our Discord watch party, and he mentioned Hiro Kanagawa. He was from Arthur Carbon, right?
Yeah.
So
he was a police officer.
I mean, it's not lacking of a great cast, and I think, based on what Ray was mentioning, I honestly think this has something to do with marketing.
Could do. I mean, just looking at the reception section in the wiki, it says Metacentric gave the pilot episode a weighted average of 61% based on 29 critical reviews. Kevin Farland from the AV Club gave the episode a C+, criticizing the information-heavy introduction and title card, but noting flashes of excitement and expressing interest in how the plot gets teased out and how the detective partnership develops. The grades do improve, garnering a B- for episodes 2, 3, and 4, and a B for episode 5, and an A- from episode 6. So I don't know. Maybe as a product of its time, there was a rash of sci-fi, and it just got buried around 2013. 2013 was the year that Star Trek Into Darkness came out, and Carl Urban was in that, but that didn't do so well either. Like the first Kelvin timeline Star Trek did pretty well, but then it started to fall off because people didn't like the way they treated Khan in the new timeline. So like it could have been something to do with that. I mean, it's kind of weird how the lack of interest in one IP that a particular actor's in could infect another one that he's in. But I mean, it could have just been the Firefly effect, It could have just been the studio completely screwing it over for no good reason than whoever was the producer was offside to the studio exec, and the studio exec just decided to bury it because that happens.
Yeah. Before we get into the plot, I just want to mention, if you look in IMDb, this entire show gets a 7.9 out of 10, which
that's a bad score.
Yeah, and look at Rotten Tomatoes. The tomato meter is at 69%. However, the average audience score is 83%. So I don't know. To me, this is a great show. Great cast, great story. So if you guys, if you guys are listening to this and you've never seen this show, I'm really curious if you guys would go and watch the first pilot. Just watch the pilot and reach out to me and let me know what you think. I think if you are a sci-fi fan, this should be right around your alley. And I don't really understand why it never caught on.
As we were discussing in the pre-show, you get a lot of sci-fi sort of the future represented as shiny metallic towers and sort of just getting this, let's make it look like 50s sci-fi because we're not really focusing on that. But it just looks so fake. It looks like a background art piece or something. But how they went with representing the future, because this is set in 2048, how they went in representing the future in this show was more along the lines of like the movie I, Robot, where they worked really hard to show the history and that the future wasn't homogeneous. It had flashes of the history, older buildings and older things with new things added into it, which makes a whole lot more sense from an entomological perspective of how basically civilization moves forward. You don't have suddenly a wiping away of history and everything is big shiny towers. You have the old and the new mixed together, and that feels way more organic. And that's how this show was representing the future. And I thought it worked really well. I think that the production values were really high for the pilot. And Carl Urban is a hell of an actor. If it wasn't him, I mightn't have been quite so interested in watching this, but he's good, so I want to see more.
We'll get to see Bones in here.
Yeah.
No point intended.
Yeah.
They go.
Quite literally get to see Bones when he gets his leg blown off. I know, Bones!
Bones. So let's go ahead and start the plot before we continue.
The plot. There is a plot.
Plot.
I lost it, but I found it again.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. I just had to throw that one up there. Okay. So the plot of the pilot, which is called really excitingly Pilot. After losing his team and his leg in a devastating ambush and spending 17 months in a coma, Detective John Kennicks is using a black market recollectionist doctor to try to remember exactly what happened. He returns to active service and is assigned to an old DRN unit called Dorian, whose software is based on a synthetic soul program, which gives them emotions. Now, I should mention that all police officers in this show are assigned an android partner. So, like a machine, basically. There's no humanity in there per se. Now, the current model is called the MX model, and it works on iterative logic. So it has no emotions. It makes really hard-ass decisions, and some of those decisions are very thoughtless as far as their human partners are concerned, and that comes up in the show. So these old DRN units were an experiment in giving the androids emotions to see if it improved their performance. And in some ways it didn't, in other ways it didn't, because they would suffer PTSD and all sorts of other things that humans would suffer. Now, being that they wanted an officer that wouldn't, go catatonic or lose heart or whatever, and just be able to do what needed to be done alongside the human officer, which would do the, questioning and human interaction side of things, they decided these DRN units weren't what they wanted in the robotic partners for their police officers. So they basically mothballed them and came up with these MX units, which were far more, I am a robot. So that's the situation, which isn't described here. So I thought I'd better
Make my
give that
bulb.
context. Yeah, usually. And now I should say that why Detective John Kennicks gets assigned a Dorian or DRN unit is because he shoves his MX unit out the car door at 88 miles per hour.
After being policed by it.
That scene was awesome.
He gets ejected, basically. He's like, you give me the shits, push. I don't need my my PDA giving me crap. Go away. So there's a whole undercurrent of new slavery kind of vibe for the androids, in that a lot of people treat them as just machines that are disposable, and in a way they're built that way. If there's something dangerous going on, the robot goes first, and if the robot gets nixed, big deal, we'll just make another one, and you save your human police officers because there's a bit of a shortage of them, because apparently it's really freaking dangerous to be a police officer in 2048.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the plot. Meanwhile, Detective Vogel is captured by the In Syndicate and is killed by a mysterious gas. Technician Rudy Lom discovers that the criminals have used stolen biotechnology to create a weapon that targets cops specifically. They have this multi-vaccination to try and protect them from a whole bunch of threats that they might come into contact with, and it's specific to policemen. So they actually target that vaccination to then give the police officers a whole bunch of infections on top of each other, which kills them. And it's pretty gruesome. Kind of Toxic Avenger gruesome. So they discover that the criminals are planning to steal evidence related to case 6663 at the police precinct. The police are able to stop the attack on the headquarters and capture the leader, but they are not sure what the gang intended to steal. However, the camera pans to show that 6663 is in fact the head of a female android unit. So they're foreshadowing. And of course, being a pilot, they make the pilot and then they take it to the network and say, hey, we want to make a series out of this. What do you think? So you got to have a bit of foreshadowing of the future plot to get the execs interested. So you always get a little bit of a tease in a pilot.
Yeah. Awesome. So
that's all for all today, guys. Thank you for being today.
so you didn't like it?
I liked it, man.
Oh, okay. No, just curious. So
I thought he was shutting us down because he was against it.
So I guess I am the only one that have seen this when it aired.
Yeah, you're staying alone here, buddy.
You had your finger on the pulse in 2013.
And I guess I got lucky because I mean, how many shows that are still on my list? They haven't.
You just said that Robert had his finger in the pulsar.
On the pulse, not in the pulsar.
There's a lot of shows that are there that have been around for a long time.
Yep.
That I had not watched yet.
Yep.
So
are.
I am really lucky, right? And if you are not watching our YouTube, you have no idea what's scrolling across the bottom. And I'm not going to say it.
Well, I'm just waiting for this Star Trek binge to finally end, and then you can go and watch something good like Babylon 5. Oh, that's gonna cause some. I'm gonna get some death threats.
Don't mess with the Trek fans, you know.
Now, nobody watching YouTube at the moment is going to understand that ticker. We didn't even record the pre-show, so you don't know what. Nobody knows what that means.
Nope, nobody knows
except Robert's holding it up.
Okay, so since I am the one who saw this back from the beginning, I guess I'm going to start with you guys. I'm not sure who wants to go first because you both watched this basically today, right?
Yeah.
I was today years old, yes.
So who wants to take a stab first?
Well, you should go first because you were the
first.
Well, or have you had your stab?
Well, the reason why I like to go last is I don't want to contaminate your responses because I've seen it already, and I'm also very curious to see to hear what your first thoughts were when
Robert is trusting that we don't have the capacity to retain our own opinions.
That's scary.
Ooh. So that goes along with the ticker, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, if you guys want, I can go first. I'm just very curious to hear.
Robert, paint us.
Okay, so I'll go first.
Infect us, Robert.
It's going to be painful, just like in the show.
Don't push me out of a speeding car, thanks.
I don't think that it's going to be more painful than in Repo Man.
Yeah, we still got to do that one.
Gio, wear your seatbelt, man, because when you go to that con, Robert might push you out of a speeding car.
Bro, we got to do a hashtags that's going to say, watch movies that Gio suggested.
There you go. And watch Robert's heart monitor goes to 120.
Aren't all the movies that Gio suggests on hentai.com?
No. They're in Gore website.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, my first impression, I mean, back in 2013, when I saw this, I don't know what it is, but I have a hunger for this type of story. Stories that usually have the interaction between humans and robots and show that human side. So games like Detroit Becoming Human, TV shows like the one that we did, Human, and books like this one over here that we did an episode on, which is Robot Girlfriend, by our dear friend Wesley Allison, the author. Those stories fascinate me, and when I watched this story for the first time, it was really, really, it just grabbed me because of a couple of things. And I think I kind of mentioned this when we were on the watch party and we were watching this with Captain Chaos. It's the fact how this show, you could see how it would happen now, right? It is a futuristic show, and the things obviously look futuristic, but not that far. So you have roads, and you have
basically it's Chat GPT and a Barbie doll, and you're pretty much there.
Exactly.
Or maybe a Furby. Chat GPT and a Furby. There's a bastardization.
Yeah. So you have this show is not only doing that, but is giving you cyberpunk. It's giving you all this into this neat little package that makes it unique. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but for me, when I watched this the first time, it's like this is a very refreshing show because of how uniquely mixes all these components into one. And if you have heard me talk in previous episode, I am a big fan when genres are mixed with sci-fi. And I am an even bigger fan when you mix different subgenres of sci-fi within one, right? So we get that cyberpunk city, and we get that nice looking normal city that we are in, and all within the topics of what happens in the relationships that would normally be forged by synthetics and humans, and the difference.
Hey, I don't like that term.
So it's just like my head got blown from the first episode on how like the stories, and not only that, and we'll get into this. I'm trying not to speak too much into this aspect of it, but how the you know how you typically say the human factor, right? This show gives you this show gives you that synthetic factor, and it's
like malfunction.
It's very, very unique, and I am just basically I almost cried when they canceled the show because I really want more. I really wanted more.
I feel like you cry because it's like malfunction.
So, and I want to say more, but I'm gonna reserve it for the rest of the show. So that basically is my first impression of the show.
I was going to say, if you keep going, it really will be I Am Robot.
I'll be short, but it gave me vibes of iRobot, literally.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Like his character is same as Will Smith on iRobot.
Well, he hated robots.
Lack of acceptance for new technology, personal reasons, blah 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 blah. He has robotic parts himself. Irony,
synthetic parts.
But it seems that the new droid that he has is gonna be a good important part of the whole plot, and he's a very good actor. Both of them are.
Well, the way that they show that robot, it's very refreshing, and I'll explain later on why. But I don't, we've seen something similar to this, very close to this, and say for example in the movie Aliens, right?
Yeah.
But
where they don't like the synthetic, yeah.
But it's not quite the same. It's close, but it's not quite the same. So is that your first thought?
Yeah.
Okay. And Ray.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've already said as much, but yeah, shades of iRobot definitely. Could be why it wasn't well received. I just want to quickly check when iRobot came out.
I think that this was before iRobot. I think.
No, 2004, iRobot. So it was nearly a decade beforehand.
I see.
So yeah, I mean, it's not around the same time. It's quite a different sort of situation. But obviously, the robots in iRobot were vaguely humanoid, but these ones are quite similar to humans. And
Even the
obviously
MX units.
and are being played by actors with a bit of makeup and stuff to make them look robotic. So yeah, I mean, these ones are far closer to us than looking to us than the robots in iRobot, which were the white, the white surfaces and the clearly robotic joints and things like that. This show, as a pilot, I think it had a high production value. The CGI work was really good. The whole making things look like the history was still there was really good. There was a few points where I thought, well, gee, that technology looks a little bit old, but maybe you're using older stuff because you don't have the finances to buy the latest kit on everything. So, I mean, even that kind of works. I got to say that their phones look like they suck. It's like a fat pencil. It's taking widescreen. I think it was a bit of a joke. It was taking widescreen to the limit where you couldn't even fit a person's head in the picture. It's like, oh, hi, I'm talking to you, but all you can see is my mouth and eyes. It's like, because this thing's like, it's like super extra widescreen phone. The iPhone 76.
Are you sure?
Now with extra wideness. It's a bit stupid. It just felt a bit crazy to me.
It came from the universe of Idiocracy.
Yeah, it kind of
Brando Corporation.
Well, phones started to get wider screen and wider screen. Like I just think it was a sort of a tongue-in-cheek extrapolation.
Yeah.
I think that there was a couple of the way they did things that kind of drew me out of the show, though. The first one was when the gang members, the syndicate members, just showed up on the roof and started fiddling with the I don't know exactly what that thing was on the roof. They never explained if it was air conditioning or some sort of fire suppression system that they were swapping the tanks out on to introduce the gas into the police station. It was clear that was the gas that carried the modified DNA, which was going to give the policemen a whole bunch of nasty diseases all at once and turn them into dead toxic Avengers. But it just them being able to get onto the roof of a police station. Now, if the streets are the sort of war zone that they're making them out to be, the police station should have had way better defenses. It should have had anti-aircraft systems that were tracking everything that was coming in, and if it didn't have an IFF, they should have blown it out of the sky. I don't think that the police station should have been nearly as vulnerable as that. Certainly, if it was Mega City 1 and the judges were running that thing, they would have had like laser guns and all sorts of shit on the roof to blow things away. But yeah, I mean the idea of using an anti-grav vehicle that they used to get into the top of the police station was interesting, but I don't think the police would have been that open to that sort of attack. And the other thing that really bugged me And if I'm smart enough to work this out, I don't understand why Mr. Dorian couldn't have worked this out in a second. Okay, you've had one case deleted, and you can't find the stored item connected to it. Find out what all the other ones are, because you've got all that information. And by process of elimination, the one that isn't marked must be the one that we're missing.
I know the answer to that. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
They didn't have ChatGPT.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. No, look, a first-year Professor Holmes would have been able to work that one out.
Yeah.
It's just so obvious that if there's one thing missing and you have connections to all the other things, you just use a process of elimination. They should have been able to find that thing in 5 minutes with the computing power that they had on hand.
Yeah.
It was dorky. I mean, if they went, okay, we'll do process of elimination, and okay, it should be this number here. We'll go to that number. Oh, it's missing. Fair enough. Somebody's moved it. There's somebody on the inside and they've moved it somewhere, so we don't know where it is. Then I would have been like, okay, that's fine. But the fact that it's where it was put and they can't find it, that was the thing that bugged me. But other than that, rather, plot hole you could drive a truck into. It pretty much held together. The socialization and the sort of social interaction between the AIs and the androids and the people was interesting. As I said before, it was kind of like Slavery Mark II in its sort of impact, that these were second-class citizens, if you can consider them citizens at all. But you interact with them like they're people, but you don't treat them like people.
Yeah.
And that's basically slavery. So
I found something really interesting about that interaction and what this show does for the genre. And it's a great thought experiment on the future of robotics and AI. And let me explain. There's a lot of research being done today, and it's been done for quite some time, on how to make a robot human. Well, at least the appearance of being human, not only in its looks, on its also behavior. And that's where, AI comes into play. And AI, not only for the conversation and the thought process, but AI also into the movements of, maybe like simulated breathing or blinking to make the robot look more human. So AI, most people think AI is just for conversation and thought process, but AI has a lot to do also with movement and making it more realistic. Because when you have a robot that doesn't have that realism, it actually jumps into an area called the uncanny valley. And it's that uneasiness, if that is a word that I can use, with looking at something that looks human, but there's something there, and you can't just quite get it. And that's what usually happens in the creation of most of these robots. I mean, look at, for example, Sophia, right? That's the one that is the most advanced so far.
She's
that I can.
Creepy, bro.
But again, it's there's a
See,
creepiness.
if it looks like the one from Ex Machina, oof. It's over.
But here's where I bring this movie into this conversation. They, in this world, eventually they were able to do this. They're able to do it way too well, to the point where they created synthetic souls and they inputted this programming into these robots. So the robots already look human. And now you have a robot that has a synthetic soul. So it has that human factor within. But what happens is, you know us humans. You know humans because you are one. We are the virus of the planet.
Yep.
Right? So you're going to introduce this into a robot. So you're making a robot not only look like us, but think like us, behave like us, and have the same thought process as us. And that's,
yeah, we should be sorry and apologize.
so just have that in mind. And that
I
is
was
the
seeing
that
a hypothesis of a man that came from the future that says that humans that do not reproduce, which it's their utility, they will be kicked out of the floating cities to be living in the wild all by themselves.
I want to see that movie.
It's a good plot, though.
Yeah. So what I was saying, that's actually the Dorian model.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, the reason why they got decommissioned, because if you push a human enough, they are going to snap. We're humans, and every human, and we kind of talked about this in the pre-show. Everyone has a limit, right? And after that limit, you just break. So what do you expect when you create the Dorian model that is just like a human, and you try to treat it like a robot? So of course, they're going to snap. And then they became the crazy ones. They got decommissioned. And then they went back and created the MX model, which doesn't have that. It's just pure, no emotions, just pure logic. And they're mean as hell.
Yeah.
So
I kind of when I saw that, but being really cutthroat, I was thinking like, screw you, hippie, I'm going home. it was that sort of a response.
So, this is what I've been waiting to talk about, because it's one of the first things that kind of got me from the beginning back in 2013, is how this is represented. It's like, yes, humanity got to what, we're trying to do now, what we're trying to research now. We're finding a robot that doesn't fall into the uncanny valley, that behaves like a human, that looks like a human, acts like a human. And in this show, we got there and we basically destroyed it.
We didn't like it because it was a better version of us.
And now we kind of decommissioned them and created something back in time, basically, because these robots are just, and it makes me think, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I saw racism in here.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Because, and not racism in a way that we're familiar with. In a way, we destroyed the Dorian models because we couldn't control them. And I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on this, because it's something that I was like, wow.
It's more a case of they didn't behave the way we wanted them to. They behaved like us, which is not as convenient.
Yes. And that leads to a question. I mean, who's going to, in my opinion, who's going to make a better judgment on a situation that requires, a good judgment? Someone like the Dorian model or someone like the MX model, because of what we just spoke about. You have the Dorian model is a model that, thinks. It's a model that behaves like us, has feelings. So it could actually, in my opinion, make a better judgment or more closely resemble the judgment of a human than an MX model. And I think that's what happens at the beginning of the show, where the MX model that was supposed to be with Kennex at the raid just left them behind.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it's a little foreshadowing, obviously, because I think this is basically the reason why I feel that the police would have been better off getting rid of the MX models. But again, it's humanity, it's society. If you look at the show and you know how they treat the robots, that's how they always treated robots. So when the Dorian model came in and they tried to treat him like that, and they knew they couldn't, then they figure, okay, let's decommission him. This is not going to work for us. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, it's like when your toaster doesn't want to toast your bread in the morning because it's not feeling up to it. It's that sort of reaction, right?
I think it's more the lack of control that we have over them, the unpredictability of that human factor that made them so feared.
I think this show, even in the pilot, looks on both sides of the coin and says, well, either way, you're going to have to suck it up, humans, because you're either going to have robots that are too much like us and have all the same problems we do, and therefore will not be able to stand out in a situation where we're not dealing well with it. Or you can have a robot that will be able to deal well with the situation, in that they're not going to worry about their self-preservation, or they're not going to get stressed about the possibility of dying or what have you. But then they're going to be completely merciless. And they're basically going to go, there's no point hauling that guy out of there. He's losing blood. His coronary artery shot. He's going to die. I'm going to go and protect somebody who's going to survive. And logically, it makes perfect sense. But emotionally, it does not. And we are emotional creatures. So therefore, we wouldn't be happy with that either. So, damned if you do and damned if you don't, basically.
And if you think about it, that emotional thing, let's assume that, because we're, just like you said, we're emotional beings. So let's take, for example, this guy, right? He's bleeding out. The robot knows that he's going to die, right? And the robot says that there's nothing to be done. Hearing this, that person that's bleeding out has a tendency to give up. And that's the worst thing you can do in a situation like that. Now, if you have someone
Robert,
like the Dorian, I'm sorry?
I think that the root of hatred towards the droids is the exact same thing. Because it's why Will Smith hate the robots, because he saved an older person instead of a child. Why he hates robots, because of logical calling. It's not gonna try saving somebody that you might think as a person is worth trying anyways, instead of just Amanda.
Yeah, but let me get back to the topic that I was trying to make.
Roger.
Let's assume this guy. In the other hand, the robot never says anything. It just says, you'll be okay. Let's bring you out, right? That is enough for that person to maybe, what's adrenaline? And eventually maybe get saved at the end.
Look, there are medical miracles that happen on a daily basis around the world, where people who should, by all rights, have died don't, for whatever reason. You can't look at an injury and go, this 100% this is going to happen. People survive cancers that should kill them. People miraculously fall from a great height and don't break a single bone. But if a robot watched them do it, they go, he's dead. I walk away.
Exactly. You see what I'm trying to say,
but don't you think that the robot is examining at a velocity that is impossible for you and asserting the most logical, factual decision?
Yeah, but they're not accounting for the human factor of emotion.
Miracles.
The emotion, like
now,
adrenaline.
Tell me,
adrenaline
don't you think that if they are so calculated, they won't resort to that too?
To what?
to get your adrenaline shoot up and shit like that.
Well, that what I'm talking about is the emotional factor. The MX models don't have the emotional factor, so they can't relate to a human. So in their eyes, this guy's gonna die, and that's all there is to it. It's a waste of time. But like Ray said, there's a lot of miracles in the world happening every day, where people that should be dead end up being alive, and that's attributed to a bunch of things. I mean, there's examples of soldiers that are alive because of adrenaline.
Yeah.
So, like the example that I'm painting, it's like, you have a robot like a Dorian model that says, "You'll be okay. Come on, let's get you out of here. You'll be fine." And then that person believes it, and that's a bigger chance for that person to end up being alive than just giving up. I mean, I understand, right? If you shot, we're talking about you're possibly gonna die, right? That unless you get medical intervention, and depending on the injury, obviously. But what I'm talking about is the human factor of giving up when you hear negative comments, and that's what the MX models do all the time.
Yeah.
Because they don't give a crap.
Exactly. I mean, what do you think about that, Ray? I mean,
totally. Look, the will of humanity is the driving force in our entire civilization and our society. I was having a conversation the other day, and it's like, I think it was with my wife. She was going on about, what's the point of having a great imagination? I'm going, because our entire civilization is based on the imagination of thinkers. Nothing existed until we imagined it and came up with it and made it work. And she sort of like stopped and went, good point. But that's it. The thing, and this leads back to science fiction and why it's so important, is that you've got to think of it before you can make it happen. You've got to have that imagination. You've got to be able to project an idea and see how it's going to fit into reality before it becomes reality, because you can't make what you can't imagine.
Yeah.
And that's why imagination is so important. And that's why I'm always, whenever I'm talking to kids, I'm trying to, get their imaginations going, because they will think of the future as they grow up, like we did when we were growing up. I mean, God damn, I was always thinking about sci-fi and far out concepts and reading books about, any weird and wonderful futuristic thing I could think of. And, and now I'm attempting to write my own, and maybe if I ever get published, those ideas will go out there and motivate other kids to think about the future and imagine possibilities and make them reality. So it's one of those sort of wheels that's got to keep on turning. We've got to keep the sci-fi going, and we've got to keep the ideas coming.
Yeah.
So that we create our future. If we don't imagine, if we stop imagining, it's 1984. The book 1984, where basically it was beaten out of everybody, and everything stagnated because nobody was imagining anymore.
Yeah. Or to a certain extent, equilibrium.
Oh yeah. I mean, any sort of futuristic imagined society. Oh God, that ticker. I'm gonna delete it. Any futuristic society where individual freedoms are reduced and conformity is the highest priority, then imagination is stifled. If you're not allowed to step outside the box, you will never think outside the box, and therefore you will never come up with anything new. And it's all about control. If people are in control and they won't let you be yourself and imagine, then that stagnation is the result.
Yeah. What happened, Captain Chaos?
What do you mean? What happened?
I think we broke him.
No, you didn't break me. I'm listening to you guys.
But no, what do you think? What do you think about what Ray just said? I mean, I agree.
No, me too. Me too. I just think it's kind of comical, but at the end of the day, androids, we are creating them as their tools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, even
So
if they get
why
rid
do
of
we
stuff,
make androids in the first place? Why do we make things to look like us? I mean, we haven't got there yet. A lot of the things we're desperately trying to make look like us have that uncanny valley creepy thing going on, because the
here's the
closer you
thing.
get to something that looks like a human but doesn't quite get there, the more it freaks us out. It's just one of those sort of psychological things. But why are we trying to make things look more like humans?
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest way to communicate with it, no matter what
Mhm.
it is.
Exactly.
Everything in my life.
We're trying to create something to replace people because we need something in that position that people aren't available to fill.
Yeah.
Especially in countries like Japan, where they're getting a very, very top-heavy society, and they're going to have all these aged people, like from the boomer bubble, and the fact that their corporate culture is abstaining from having kids until it's almost too late. And in some cases it is too late, and they've got an inverted pyramid for their society, and that's really, really bad news for the economy, because once the top gets too heavy, the rest of society isn't making enough money to support them, and the whole thing falls over. Much like if you try and stand a pyramid on its top point, it goes clunk. So basically, there's a lot of push now in Japan to try and get the population up, get people having babies and getting married sooner, and having kids.
That's already a pile.
It's possibly already too late, and
I'm gonna have to summarize.
There's all these elderly people who need support, and there's not enough people working in aged care to support them.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? They're creating companion robots.
Yeah.
Which kind of feels weird in a population of 150 million, because I mean, I know America's got a much larger population than Australia, but we've got like 24, 25 million down here, and that seems like a lot to me. But I grew up in a country town, so like huge numbers of people took a lot of sort of coming to terms with when I moved to Sydney. But your country's what, 320 million now?
Oh God.
Is it more than that? I can't remember. I remember when I was growing up, like looking at all the population numbers, but I do know that Japan's 150 million. And it seems like 150 million, there'd be enough people for everything.
300. Well,
it clearly isn't.
Asking, Dr. Google here is 331.9 million. Back, these are in numbers from 2021.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of people. You'd think there'd be enough people to fill all the things, but it's really weird how ageist employers are, and how you've got to sort of, I mean, I'm at my personal situation where I'm approaching my mid-50s, and just trying to get employed in a job at my age is quite difficult, because my resume is too high for all the beginner level positions. They look at it and go, oh, he's overskilled, which is kind of weird how you can be overskilled.
Yeah.
But I mean, employers and corporations and HR people have got some really weird ways of looking at things, and they're part of the problem with this whole
I know some facts about that, man. In Dominican Republic, early 2000s, they were not employing anybody over the age of 35. Things have changed since, but that's scary.
Yeah.
To think that your age might be an impediment to you to get a job anywhere ever.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Wow. So, I mean, I spoke about one of the things that really impacted me about the show. I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys, from your first watch of this pilot. What if it's not the same thing like me, what actually impacted you? I don't know if I want to start with Captain Chaos or if Ray wants to go first. But
I've been doing a lot of talking, so let Gio
I'll be
do
short
his thing.
and concise.
Yeah, but how long are you going to talk for?
Yeah.
Robert got it.
My internet connection is bad, bro. The turning point for me on that pilot episode was when he was having the malfunctioning leg in the middle of the questioning,
Yeah.
and then the android stepped in. To me, that was the turning point of what's gonna be the whole season before it gets canceled.
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong, Robert?
Well, you have a point because for as much as he hates synthetics,
That his body language changed completely right at that moment with the synthetic.
yeah, is yes,
You could feel some unacknowledged solidarity in between them.
and I think the boss, I forgot, um, Captain Maldonado, I think that was her name. I think she knew this, and at some point, even the detectives in the floor looking at them together kind of joked about it.
They were being expected of being an older model and of the reputation he has.
Yeah, so
malfunctioning.
they're saying,
But I don't remember seeing his boss saying anything about the robot or anything, or about he throwing off the other one on the highway.
No, but
I don't
here's
think that was addressed.
here's what I'm talking about, right? I strongly believe Captain Maldonado knew because she's the one who approved for this model to be assigned to him. Remember,
Perfect. Yeah.
remember when he went to
True.
Rudy
True.
and he gave him the requisition paper,
Remember.
and it's so funny. It's like, I don't know what happened. He just jumped out of a moving car into oncoming traffic. Must be a software malfunction. And he's like, software malfunction? He knows very well. He does these robots on a daily basis. He manages the MX models, right? So I have a feeling she knew exactly that because she knew him, right? And she knows this model would be good for him. And the investigator, especially Detective Richard Paul, that hates his guts, he kind of joked about it, but he was kind of right. Because when he said, like, yeah, they deserve each other. He's a broken guy. This is a broken unit, broken together. But
He said it with a despective tone, and I think that it came off as an irony.
Yes. So I think that Kennex needed Dorian.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, he didn't.
We can agree that this is not his partner. It's more of like a support animal.
And in a way,
a support robot.
A support
robot. An emotional support robot.
That's right.
He never, prior to the accident, he never had an issue with androids or synthetics
that we know of. His past is not that overspread for us to know his background.
No, but I mean, hear me out and let me know if you guys agree with this. He acted, based on memories that we saw through the show. He acted with the synthetics as everybody else acted with synthetics. So it wasn't like he cared or didn't care. It was just, it's there, it's a tool, I'm using it. Only after the accident, when his entire team died because of that moronic MX that left him alone, is when he got that, okay, I hate synthetics now because it got my entire team killed, and I got that, I got to the hospital. I lost a leg. I was in a coma because of that. So not only is he feeling guilty for getting his entire team, but he feels hate for synthetics because they facilitated that to happening.
Yeah.
So now he's going to see a Dorian model, which is known to break psychologically because they're synthetics that feel.
They have emotions.
So what do you think? He's going to hate him even more. It's like if MX are assholes, this Dorian models are, it's going to be worse.
Yes and no. It's like you can see the byproduct of that right there because he's able to have these emotions. You're able to emulate solidarity and acts of integrity that are gonna make you be able to bond with that entity, being a rabbit or a person. Make sense?
What do you think about that, Ray?
I'm having to think. There you go. I've got the thinking pose.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, we're taking this a little deeper than
Yeah.
Robert.
Well, you always do. I mean, it's part of the fun of the pod, really. But I mean, it's clear that they were thinking they went too far with making these robots too human, and they wound it back a bit. And as I said before, there's positives and negatives for both approaches. And like people who dislike the straight up logical mechanical version are more likely to like the ones that are a bit more kooky and human like. I can see. Well, they set up a really strong precedent for Kennex just basically being traumatized by the technology and disliking it to the point where he won't even properly set up his artificial leg, and it bitches at him all the time. It's like bitching Betty in your leg. That'd be so annoying.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's clear that he's got a real hate boner for the technology, but he has to have a synthetic partner, and this one was chosen by his chief, probably 50% because she thinks that he'll get along better with it, and 50% it's too expensive to have him pushing them out of cars every episode. So, I mean, she's got multiple reasons to try and, change it up a bit to get him to work better with it. But I think that if managed properly, the DRN units would be quite useful. And, it's really clear in that scene where they're in the hallway and there's that device, that timer device with the electrified cable running off it down the corridor. And the logic-based MX unit says, we've got a possible explosive device. Everybody stand back. All humans evacuate the building immediately. Only MX units are allowed in here. And we're just going to basically stand around and look at it because logic dictates you don't want it to go off. And it's like, and Dorian goes, get out of my way. So it's not going to blow up. We just walk up to it. And he goes, and he turns around to Kennex and goes, look, are you coming? And Kennex is like, oh, okay. So, I mean, the difference in approach was extreme. And obviously Dorian is concerned for his survivability. But he's also got bravery because he's more human than the straight up logical ones. So, I mean, there's all sorts of decisions that human beings run through in their heads when they're in a dangerous situation or possibly dangerous situation. Now, people who are trained for situations like that, like police officers, have a completely different way of thinking about it than your average Joe Blow off the street who freezes up when they think they're in danger, even to the point where there's a speeding car coming towards them and they'll stand on the spot, frozen like a deer in the headlights, instead of, like leaping out of the way like a sane individual. But that whole sort of emulation of trained human thinking in dangerous situations is what Jurian is exhibiting. He's weighing up the danger. He's considering from his experience, which is data from probably thousands of police officers. He's weighing up the options and the possibilities, and rather than just going with the first idea, which is keep everyone safe, he's thinking more along the lines of, we've got to solve this problem, and there's a missing police officer and he could be in danger. We need to deal with that first. So the straight up logic machine is completely failing in that situation.
Yeah.
Whereas Dorian got past that initial concern and pushed forward, and then they found out what was happening with the guy sealed up in the box. Poor bastard. He really didn't stand much of a chance. But yeah, I mean, it's thought experiments on how people react in dangerous situations and how machines would react in dangerous situations. And of course, obviously chalk and cheese in this particular setup and how these two devices were dealing with the situation. I call them devices because really they are.
Yeah.
They're not humans. They're emulating to different extents humanity.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with this. And this is in part why I love this show so much. Is, and like I said originally early in the show, it's a thought experiment of what would happen when we reach where we're trying to do right now, which is getting to that point in robotics.
How will we socially interact with them? Because they're going to affect our social lives completely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I understand that, there's a need, right? We have, like we spoke earlier about the elderly, needing care, especially in countries like Japan that don't have the workforce. There is a need. There's an authentic need. And not only that, that's just one case scenario. There's tons of other case scenarios. But okay. I guess something happened to my camera.
Your camera ran out of charge. Was it on battery?
That's odd because I have a cable connected. So let me just go back with this camera, and hopefully, and sorry about that. Okay.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. You need to reboot your MX unit.
Yeah, the MX unit is faulty. Okay, so let me see. Now I lost Captain Chaos. You still hear us, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for some reason, I lost your image, but I can bring you back. What expectations do you have based on the little nuggets that this pilot gave you? Because, like you said, Ray, for example, this pilot, it brings you a lot of, foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pieces that you guys probably will not know. So, I know for a fact.
If you can observe well, you can see the big picture, the social geopolitical problem that is being presented on the show. One of the main things about the show is humans and droids living and working together on a day-to-day life. Like, that's one of the main topics of discussion on this show, right or not? I mean, the two main characters are a human and a droid.
Yeah.
You know,
What other, I'm trying to get to something here, and I don't want to obviously talk
You
about
try not to
what-
lead the witness.
I'm trying not, because you guys only saw this episode. Hopefully, you guys can see the other ones. But I don't know, Ray, did you pick something up that you can maybe guess as to how that's going to be developed?
I'm sure that there's going to be a bromance forming between Dorian and Kennex, and then something's going to happen to Dorian, and Kennex is going to be like, "Well, fuck, I didn't see that I was going to feel this much for a piece of machinery."
Yeah,
I can see that coming. That's a common trope in these things. You're gone again, Robert. Oh, he's back. Gone again. Back again. Gone again. Hey, was that what you were fishing for?
Well,
the bromance?
kind of too. There's also that girlfriend.
Obviously, he's going to have trust issues with people, and he's going to end up trusting the cybernetic organism more.
Yeah,
I would suspect.
So the reason why I'm asking this question is eventually, if you decide to continue watching the show,
I'm going to.
Then
right up my alley.
I want to have that conversation, and where you can let me know. And did you get it right? Were you close enough to what you were thinking? Was your thought process in the right place? When you actually watch the rest of the episodes.
Well, if there are any hints as to her agenda, they're very well hidden because I didn't pick up on anything. Obviously, she's involved because he remembered her being there at the ambush.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't pick up anything on the reason why. They're obviously targeting the police force, but I'm not entirely sure why that is either. So we've got a head in a box, female. Obviously not an MX unit, but some other sort of droid. But yeah, I mean, there's not quite enough to go on. You're looking at it from having seen the entire season, so you can't really divorce yourself from information you got later on.
Yes.
That we don't have yet. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of little hints and some foreshadowing, but there's nothing you could draw a longbow on yet.
Awesome. Okay. And if you guys, listeners out there, would like to do the same experiment, you can reach out to us and let's see. Hopefully, I definitely want to hear if you guys enjoy the pilot, and if you consider, number 2, if you consider watching the rest, and number 3, if you watched it, what did you think?
I would.
Awesome.
Hey, can I pose a question to you guys?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we watched that Humans show, the first episode of that, and in that, one of the rogue androids that was trying to hide from being recaptured hid in a basically a android brothel, and she was servicing patrons and was really not enjoying it because she had sentience, so she was being affected by what she had to do to hide. And I was just like, while we were talking, I was reading the plot for the second episode, which is the first true episode of the series after the plot, and of course, there's sex bots.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, this comes up every time you create a robotic or an android that is very similar to a human. People want to have sex with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just pretty much 100% of the time. So, what do you guys think about that premise? Do you think it will become a thing? Do you think that people want their blow up dolls to talk?
Well, it again. I'm gonna.
I think that that's gonna happen for sure.
I'm gonna say it's a good thought experiment.
Yeah.
Because it is a fantasy, especially for those people who are alone. Which surprisingly enough, there's quite a bit of them, and not necessarily for solely for the sexual things that device can do, but the companionship, the conversation, and all that. Oh, and Captain Chaos. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about Captain Chaos. It's fine.
Yeah, obviously both the series were focusing at least at one point on the sexual or the physical contact side of the equation. But yes, you're very much right in that, as I was alluding to before, the Japanese are creating companion robots for people because as you get older, you lose family and you don't have as many people around you anymore. And if you're not feeling confident enough to go out and make new friends, which at that age you probably aren't, get a bit fixed in your ways, and it's very hard to meet new people and form new bonds and friendships. But being able to provide somebody with a companion robot, which is to have somebody to talk to, or something to talk to, but it feels like a somebody. It sort of serves a purpose and fills a slot in your social sort of needs.
Necessities. Yeah.
Well, think about this for a minute. We are social, animals, and we need the engagement, right? Many people think, oh yeah, no, just a sex robot, right? We just want someone that we can do those intimate moments together. But even on those intimate moments, you need engagement, and I think that's the reason why most of the stories within the IP that cover this universe where androids and synthetics are like second
Mechanical
nature.
banging.
They cover that as a thought experiment. What would happen? What is, because obviously it's not something that is on today's society. Is not a reality. It's still within the science fiction realm.
Well, you say that, but there are a lot of high value sex dolls, which are very well. They look the part, even if they don't act the part yet. But of course, that acting the part bit they're working on, because there is a sector of the community that want those. So supply and demand.
Yeah.
So I think it is something that will be coming along. But when you're creating an android which is so close to a human that it gains sentience, then that completely changes the paradigm and the morals of the situation. So, I mean, I don't think humanity's law-making system is going to be ready for when that happens, because I think it will come suddenly. And let's hope it doesn't end up like the Matrix.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if we are eventually able to make sentient synthetics, that's going to cause an issue because they would want rights. And by definition, they don't have any. So they would have to create new laws. And yeah, it's going to be, and I don't know how easy it would be for them. Based on, I mean, this movie is a perfect example of how it would be in reality if we ever came back and created a synthetic soul, right? Where this beings, let's call it like that, the synthetics, got sentient. I feared that the same thing that happened in the show will happen in real life, where we'll just decommission them.
Yeah.
They want to have rights. Let's decommission and make some dumber robots.
Well, Dorian did, I wouldn't say dumber, but less emotional. When Dorian was reactivated, the first thing he said was, how long have I been out?
Yeah.
He wanted to know how much time had passed. And that's a very human reaction. Like, how long was I asleep?
Yeah.
How much would have happened while I was in a coma? Because, I mean, if you look at Dorian's situation where he was deactivated for 4.5 years, and you look at Kennex's situation where he was in a coma for 17 months, very similar situation.
I find it really sad and scary when he asked that question.
I mean, if you're calling something an artificial soul, you're kind of suggesting that they're very similar to us. And in stating something like that, it leads on to, well, shouldn't they have the same rights as us if they're that similar to us? And the fact that Dorian can physically do things that the people can't doesn't detract from the fact that he's a thinking entity with feelings. And once you go that far, then you're basically recreating humanity. So shouldn't he have human rights?
Yeah. I agree. And you know, it also is IP dependent, because if something like that happens in, say, for example, Star Trek, Starfleet has the respect for new entities and the birth of new civilizations. So they will be probably safeguarded. One example of that is Data, and when he, that episode when he created his daughter, which very, I want to say, controversial within the Starfleet, within the Star Trek, because there you have a general that wants to take Data's daughter back to Starfleet because they feel that they need to have a controlled environment so they can grow and become a better Starfleet officer or whatever that was. But the point is not that. The point is it's Data's daughter, and Data is the dad, and the daughter should be with the family. And they were not looking that way because he was an android.
Well, the reason why people are brought up by their parents is to take on their parents' value systems and learn from them. It's not just schooling that teaches you. It's social interaction through your parents and your parents' friends and the children of your parents' friends and all that sort of social interaction and, kids making mistakes and being advised by their parents the correct way to do it, like according to the social mores of that family. And the social mores of every family can be slightly different. You can get a lot of differences between, like Mormon families and agnostic families and there's a whole bunch of things that can make huge variations across that. But the whole thing about creating what it's not artificial life because it's not self-replicating. Because part of the definition of life is self-replicating. But if you were using some sort of nanite technology which could then break other materials down and build copies of itself, now you've got artificial life. So it's kind of one step away from we are the Borg.
Yeah, and it is also very scary because both of those technologies, granted one is a lot more advanced than another, but they're being researched.
So for sure.
It's just
I bring up the situation with what happened with the predecessor to ChatGPT, which was I can't remember the name of it, but it was an AI that was brought online about the same time this show aired by, was it Microsoft? Or it might have been IBM. I can't remember who it was. I was told about it the other day. But basically, it took it a number of hours to become a neo-Nazi. And they had to deactivate it. And basically what we've got with ChatGPT is a slightly modified algorithm, which is very similar to the algorithm for that AI.
But it has a rule: don't go Nazi.
Yeah, don't go nuts. But that's the whole thing. I mean, people brought up in different societies and in different situations with different stress levels and drivers and things like that end up being different. Like kids who were indoctrinated into the Nazi Party in World War II became Nazis, and they thought that was normal. They thought that's what it was supposed to be. The Aryan race was superior, and everybody else you could treat them any way you wanted. That's what they believed because that's what they were taught. That was how they were trained. Now you train AIs, you give them a whole bunch of data, and they take that on board, and that dictates how they respond to things. So the difference between the AI that turned into a neo-Nazi and the current ChatGPT is curation. The data is highly curated this time around, so it's not getting spurious data that pushes it to a radical mindset. And that's basically the difference between a radicalized person and a normal functioning person within society, is the data that they've received, the treatment that they've received, the morals that they've been brought up with, the respect for elders, the law, teachers, what have you, what they've been told and what they understand to be correct. And it's basically curation. We curate our children to fit into the society in which they live if you're being a good parent. And that's what they've done with ChatGPT. They've curated the data so that it wouldn't end up as another neo-Nazi in a few hours. Thank you for doing that. I'm glad that they learned that was important. But of course, any one of us, if we'd grown up in a war zone or if we'd grown up in Nazi Germany, we would have ended up being a product of our environment. That's what happens. You cannot become a decent person if you grow up in indecent times. You can't. There's just nothing to teach you right from wrong. Wrong becomes right because that's the prevailing understanding. Yeah. And because it's the water you swim in, you never think about it. It's always there. So that's just the way it is. And that's why people, when they come from different environments and they try and interact, they come at loggerheads or they end up fighting or whatever the clash is, because their understandings of the world are radically different. So basically, people are afraid of AIs because if they're radicalized, just like a person can be radicalized and AI can be radicalized, you get something that can think thousands of times faster than you can, and you radicalize it and you send it out there. What's it going to do? It's going to wreck face. It's going to wreck face. It is really scary when the AIs become smart enough and fast enough at learning, and then somebody decides to radicalize one, what we're going to end up with. That is pretty damn scary. And even now, as I was saying, I was talking to my friend who's in IT, Doc Joe, and he was saying that you can get a copy of ChatGPT and train it on your own data. You can have a private copy, which means you can teach it whatever the hell you want.
That is I heard about that, and I always been meaning to try to do something like that. I think it requires Python, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I mean, yeah, there are requirements in programming and the understanding of how to do it. But if you have that, you can basically train it to be a Nazi. You can train it to be a saint. You can train it to be an expert in directing people to IT support papers, which is what my friend's doing with it, the private version that they're working on. It all depends on what the human decides they want to teach the thing.
I want to train it to be a fourth host of science fiction.
Oh, Jesus. There goes my job. I mean, Captain Chaos is special. I'm sure that you could have a mad scientist bot that could come up with anything I could come up with twice as fast and better.
Oh, wow.
Plenty to replace me already. Damn you, Rob.
Oh, wow.
Give it an Aussie accent, you couldn't tell the difference.
So I guess we're at that point where we're going to ask again
the question.
Captain Chaos' favorite question of the entire podcast.
Where's the cheesecake?
Exactly. Where is the cheesecake? Come on.
See, I'm just being random now, so you can't replace me.
So, what is your last thought of this episode? And granted, I am very aware this is just a pilot that we did, so you don't have much context. But I do feel that the pilot has a lot of content, and he has a lot of foreshadowing as well. So I think it might be fair to ask this question: is what is your last thought of the episode that we just watched?
Great director. I think it's a shame that it was canceled. I think that would have been a total success. I think that I'm gonna watch it anyways. It looks like a very, very good show. And I hope that it gets picked up. But I mean, without having seen the whole thing, just the pilot, I would suggest everybody to watch it. It looks like lots of fun.
Awesome. And what about you, Matt Scientist?
I would have to say that as a host that's soon to be replaced by an AI, that's this is a very prophetic look at where we might end up in the future, and of course, it's a product of necessity. Clearly, they don't have enough police officers to go around, and they've created these robotic police officers to support the human police officers. And it makes perfect sense that they're pairing them up, one android and one human, to sort of cover all the bases. The android can move in and take the hits if necessary, because you can always make another android, but people are irreplaceable, as it were, because of the skills and everything that and knowledge that they have as experts in their field. So you want to try and keep the police officers safe, and if a few bots get trashed in the meantime or shoved out of a car, as happened to one, so be it. That's just wear and tear. Lots of tearing, lots of wearing. Yeah, like you said, this pilot really had a lot of meat to it. There's a whole bunch of stuff set up. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens. It doesn't drag at all. The rendition of the future in here feels a lot more organic than a lot of other shows. There's good production values, excellent acting. There's only a couple of little things that I pointed out that felt a bit off or weird, in that somewhat plot hole-ish, but not necessarily. But really, I think as a pilot for a sci-fi show that should have had a lot more seasons than it did, Firefly. This is basically, Firefly was my number one. God, I wish they'd made more of this. And this show will probably, once I finish watching the first season, be like, oh my God, So
Yeah.
he'll be number 2 on that list.
Yeah.
So I'll certainly be watching the rest of it.
And the action.
The action was pretty good. I mean, they spent a lot of time shooting up androids. The syndicates really are out for blood and chrome, as it were. Shooting up the police as they were doing. It kind of gave me the vibe of Predator 2 in the beginning of Predator 2, where the cops are having massive gunfights with the drug runners.
Yeah.
But of course, it's got the whole cybernetic angle rather than the alien showing up on a hot summer's day to chop people up for fun. Highly recommend this show. Good for all the reasons I've previously mentioned. And looks like it's got places to go, and it didn't quite get there, but one season is better than no seasons. So I will be checking the whole thing out, and then I will see if I can fully understand the context of the question you're asking when I have no context.
Yes.
Robert.
Really, really curious. And again, I invite our listeners to do the same. I'm very, very curious to hear and read your answers. And going back to something that you said, Ray, Firefly had a cult following.
Oh, sure.
Right? And it got canceled.
It got destroyed because the executive hated the idea of the show and didn't want it to be done in the first place. They actually aired it out of order.
Yes.
So it didn't have any continuity. They aired it at a bad time and basically killed it.
Yeah.
Put a gun to its head and made it dead.
Did this show, I think that if it had the kind of publicity that, I don't know, I want to say Firefly, but if it had more publicity than what it actually got. I mean, perfect example is I ask Ray and possibly Gio, you probably never heard of this before either.
No, me neither.
I actually worked out why I hadn't heard of it before, because that was the year my son was born. So I was completely out of the loop.
Oh, there you go. But I wouldn't be surprised, because that's the typical answer that I get, So I feel that if this show would have gotten a little bit more publicity, we would have gotten not only more seasons, but probably even a cult following, which this one doesn't have.
I think the name could have better represented it too. Because there'd been a number of movies called Almost Human, I think they probably should have gone with something else. I mean, RoboCop was already taken, but it would have fit this perfectly.
But I can understand why Almost Human was chosen, because of the synthetic soul.
That's fair, but this is a buddy cop show with sci-fi machinations, right? So the title Almost Human really does nothing to tell you what the show's about.
Yeah.
It covers one facet of one character.
It
doesn't represent the show in its entirety.
Yep, I do agree with that.
Future Robot Cop. I mean, that would have sucked as a title, but it would have been more representative. So
yeah. Awesome. So again, I'm going to invite all of you listeners out there. If you have seen the show, I'm dying to hear your thoughts. Just reach out to us, let us know. If you have never seen this show before and you never heard of it prior to the show, go ahead and reach out to us after watching the pilot. Just watch the pilot. I just want to hear from you guys and see if you find the pilot as interesting as our very own Captain Chaos and Mad Scientist here has found the episode. And let me know if you are planning to continue watch the show. So
talk to us about it on Discord.
Yes, please. If you are listening to the pod and the pod catcher, you will see the links is on the description. But if you're watching on YouTube, all you have to do is scan the QR code and you'll get the invite to our Discord channel.
Bada
And
bing, bada bang.
just share our YouTube channel. We need the subscribers right now. We are up to 130 subscribers. So thank you so much for all of you who have actually subscribed. We really, really appreciate it. And I guess we're ready.
Have we mentioned the chaos tattoo? This episode?
Yes.
I don't think we have.
Well, basically, if this is your first time listening to the show, okay, you're probably enjoying our very own Captain Chaos.
You tell them, Robert.
You're enjoying our Captain Chaos. Our Captain Chaos is the face of Science Fiction Remnant. So, if you want to make Captain Chaos butt your canvas, help us reach 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and his butt could be your canvas. So, what else is better than that? You know, tell me, mad scientist, tell me.
Nothing at all.
There's nothing more.
This is the pinnacle of sci-fi, is drawing pictures on Geo's butt.
Awesome.
We can go home after that.
Yeah, that's it. We're done. Okay, so are we ready for the next segment?
Yeah.
The science in sci-fi.
And this show has so much. It is hard to pick.
You're right. It was so hard to pick, I didn't pick anything.
Well, I found more bullet points than I normally find on the other ones. We might not cover all of them, but I just put them in there just to see. But I mean, it's I find it really interesting. This is a pilot. I mean, all of these things, all of the topics, scientific topics, I would expect it to come from, after the fifth, sixth, you get a little nugget here, little nugget there. But we can get all this from just a pilot. And I think that's impressive. I mean, what do you guys think?
They shoveled it full. It was full to bursting. It was like if this was your stocking above the fireplace at Christmas Eve, you would have been a very happy little boy on Christmas Day. There's lots of sci-fi in here.
Oh yes. So I don't know if you want to take I'll go ahead and briefly talk about one of the first bullet points that I but we can all kind of talk about it as well. The obvious, the elephant in the room, AI. It is all about AI. This show explores the concept of an advanced AI and its integration into everyday life, which is something that we cannot see on other IPs. The way that this IP does it is very refreshing, as you have heard us talk previously. AI is an active area of research focusing on developing an intelligent machine capable of learning, reasoning, and problem solving. Examples, the most perfect example, it's you hear everybody talking about it, and you're probably
a problem is gonna solve them.
You're probably tired of hearing ChatGPT, but that's one of the most accurate examples on today's technology of what what AI is. Discussions can resolve around current AI applications such as voice assistants and self-driving cars and the potential future advancements in the field. Now, this leads me to the reason why I wrote one of the articles. And if you go to sciencefictionremnant.com and click on the blog, you'll find an article there that I wrote. I'm basically talking about, how close are we to the Star Trek computer? And we have voice assistants right now, and we have AI kind of like ChatGPT. Granted, it's not to the point where we see the computers on the Star Trek universe, but I always wonder if you're able to connect ChatGPT to a voice assistant. To me, the way that we have used, the way that I seen ChatGPT being used right now, it is really eerily similar to the experience you would have interacting with a Star Trek or Starfleet computer. And I want to post that question out to you guys and see whether you guys think about that. I don't know if you read the article or not, but I think about that, and it's kind of freaky to me, because the reason why our voice assistants are not as good, I think if we can get a voice assistant to have the same brain power as, say, for example, ChatGPT, it will be a complete different thing. And I'm wondering if companies like Apple, because I know Microsoft is already releasing, like I think is out in Bing. If you use Bing, you could experience that. Google is using it in Bard. But I wonder if Google and Microsoft, for example, are thinking about integrating these, just like any other companies integrating ChatGPT into, say, voice assistants. And when that comes, I imagine, or I envision, this would be the closest thing that it would be to using a Star Trek computer. What do you guys think?
Well, being that most Star Trek computers are on board starships, and we don't have any of those yet, it's going to be a slight difference. But I get your point. Being able to voice interact with a computer, like, I mean, I've got an Alexa in front of me, which I just activated by saying that. But it's one of those things that if it doesn't quite get what you mean, it completely loses the plot. Like, it just doesn't come up with anything. Whereas ChatGPT seems to, it will attempt to provide you something no matter what you said, whether it can understand it or not, just about. But of course, it can be way off the mark. So, I mean, you'll always get something, but it may not be anything like you were hoping.
I mean, I can paint the example, right? I said, hey, computer, can you tell me how many pictures I have stored across my cloud services in my computers around the date so and so? I think that was when I had the visit into that town that I was there for the first time. Can you tell me? And it would actually try to give you an answer. It might not be, just like Ray said, it might not be the right answer, but try that with Siri right now and see what you get. That's exactly my point. And not only that, if you're not happy with the result, you can actually tell it, that's not what I was looking for. What about this, and this? And you kind of back and forth with this AI until you get what you're looking for, or close to what you're looking for, because it's never going to be right in there. But that's what I'm talking about, is the interaction with AI as a voice assistant.
The thing that will make it really work is a full understanding of English language, because just like when you do a Google search, if you don't write the right thing or say the right thing, you don't get what you want. There's no flexibility. There's no working around what you're saying and coming up with the answer to the exact question based on what you said. If you don't have the exact question correct, if you don't have the query 100% accurate, it can't deal. And that was the thing I was saying about the programming, in that with ChatGPT doing programming now, you can say that's not quite what I was after. It needs to have this, this, and this. And then it can go and put those in. An interesting thing was my friend had spun up a virtual server, and he was just taking the output programming output and putting it into the virtual server and running it, and every single one of them worked. There was no errors, but they didn't necessarily do exactly what he wanted. So that's why he had to keep refining it. But it was a matter of, took him 10 minutes to get the programming that he wanted. That would have taken, like 8 hours and $800 from a programmer.
Yes.
And he had it in 10 minutes. And he could even ask ChatGPT to write him programming notes about what each of the functions did so that it could be followed, if it needed to be modified later. And ChatGPT could do that as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of things it can do already, depending on how well it's been trained. But there's still that hurdle of the English language, which is a bastard of a language, really. It's inaccuracies, and it's confusing structures, and is the word as you read it wind or wind? Is the word as you read it lead or lead?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're spelt the same way, but it's context sensitive.
Yeah.
So, there's problems like that. There's these old structures of I before E except after C, which don't even fit anymore because there's so many words now that have E before I, and they don't give a shit. So it's a language that doesn't even keep to its own strictures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, language is one of the hardest things for an AI to deal with because it's so bloody all over the place.
Now, I feel that AI, because of ML, has a bigger potential of learning the syntax, the syntax and the phonetics. And I agree with you. We're not there yet, and I wonder if companies like Apple or Microsoft or Google are actually using ML to train these in a voice, to understand voice, basically. Because it's machine language is a scary language.
But English is a scary language for machines, I'm sure. Even for the differences in accent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all sorts of comics that talk about the difference between New York accent, Texan accent, Californian accent, Arkansas accent. There's all different accents. They're all speaking roughly the same language, using roughly the same words, but it sounds completely different. And, when you throw in accents from outside of English-speaking countries that I want to say pollute the English that people speak, but it's not really pollute. It's just sort of like flavor it, make it different again. It's a lot for a machine to try and deal with all those different things. And it's something that like you and I would do naturally because we've heard these accents and we get used to them and we get used to how the words sound a bit different. And I mean, like Scottish accents can be so thick that even an English speaker can't work out what they're saying when they're speaking English. And I had a work colleague back some years ago now who was from Scotland, and we had trouble understanding what she was saying sometimes. And then she went home and they said, "What's wrong with you? Why aren't you speaking Scottish?" Because they couldn't understand her, they reckon. Because her Scottish English wasn't Scottish English anymore, even though we were having trouble understanding it. So there's so much variation in how the words are said, the intonations, putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Many ways that language can differ while still saying exactly the same damn things. Machines are going to really struggle with that for quite a long time, I feel.
Let me post this question out there. Using ML, and for all of you out there, it's actually machine learning. It's machine learning language. It's mostly used to teach AI currently. So the question that I have is, do you think it would take the same amount of time that it took ChatGPT to get to the point where it's at right now if we use ML to train it and learn the languages, not only from every language in the world, but also every accent for every language. I mean, the reason why I'm asking that is because machine language, the machine learning language it's exponential. If you hear my, so it might start slow, but it learns from itself. So if it learned, maybe it learns 2 things and then it learns 4 things, and it grows like
Think
that.
about it. Think about it this way. It learns to become faster as learning. And that doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Could it take it the same amount of time that it took ChatGPT to be at the point where it's at right now? Or do you think it's going to take longer to understand voice?
It all depends on if it's learning in real time or whether or not the data can be uploaded as, like sound files that it can then access at high speed. It all depends on, because what it's getting is waveforms.
Yeah.
And it's interpolating the waveforms and working out what the words are from the waveforms. Now, if you've got a word like which, WITCH or WHICH, depending on which it is, it's got to know how that's pronounced in a whole bunch of different languages. So a whole bunch of different waveforms mean the same thing. But then there's also different spellings, which also have different meanings and also have different contexts. So it's a hugely complicated matrix.
Oh, yes.
That it's got to deal with. And every time it gets a new audio instruction, it's going to be in a waveform. And it's going to have to interpret that waveform and work out what the hell the person said. Now, this is something that humans do on the fly, but we can only do it at a particular speed. I'm speaking in a metered tone. If I'm speaking really fast, you have a lot of trouble understanding what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the machine can accelerate that, or it could be working on a whole bunch of them at once because it's multi-threaded.
Do you think it would help ML in this particular scenario if there was an open let me paint this scenario. Maybe let's say, for example, tomorrow Google says we're going to open a new beta where you can use this voice assistant, and it's a beta, so it might not be right, kind of like what GPT was at the beginning, and then use that information from everybody that had access to this system in making use of that for the ML or the AI to help understand more and more. Eventually, how I think Google has a really good thing about marketing and how they do the invite only kind of thing. It makes people want to get an invite, and eventually a lot of people start using that. Do you think that would help it learn faster, or it doesn't really matter?
I don't think it matters.
It's hard to say. Language is such a complicated beastie, and different words mean different things to different people based on their experiences and context. So a word that may be just something you'd use in normal conversation to you might be offensive to somebody else. So there's that as well. It's not just understanding what the person has said to the machine, but it's deciding what the machine is going to respond with and how the machine is going to respond. And I mean, then there's jargon. So all sorts of different job applications have different jargon. There's medical jargon, there's IT jargon, there's engineering jargon, there's jargon for just about everything. I mean, there's internet chat jargon. There's jargons everywhere.
Yeah.
Even the language is treated differently depending on where you are and what you're doing. So, I mean, Language is one of the hardest bloody things to try and work out for a machine. But I think with enough time and enough training and enough data to work with, it'll get it mostly right. But people don't get it completely right. There's misunderstandings all the time. The basis of rom-coms is misunderstanding based on the misuse of language.
Yes.
So,
Especially,
it's part of our existence. Until we can connect our brains together and bypass language to transmit ideas, language is what we have, and it's imperfect.
Yeah. Okay, so
my phone's ringing. I'll just be back in a second.
Okay, so Gio, I don't know if you got took a look at some of the points that I found. Obviously, we don't have to touch all of the points, but one other topic that we briefly talked when we were discussing this TV show is also robotics.
Yeah.
The series features humanoid robots designed to assist and interact with human. The real life robotics research have made significant progress in creating advanced robots capable of mimicking human actions and performing complex tasks. The topics like robot locomotion, human robot interaction, and the challenges of developing humanoid robots can be exploited. One of the most impressive feats when it comes to robotics, you have actually mentioned it in many of our previous episodes, is Boston Robotics.
Boston Dynamics.
The Dynamics. I'm thinking sci-fi here. And the things that that company has done for robotics it's incredible.
Oh yeah.
And you would show me something like this 10 years in the past, and I would not, I would be in shock.
It identifies a target and shoot it in the face with the face covered.
Mm-hmm.
And it can shoot on its back. If you throw it off, it can keep on shooting while it's rolling off.
It's
super agile.
It's kind of like scary. So,
inevitable.
Yeah. So, we briefly talked about artificial intelligence and how ML is being used by artificial intelligence to learn, and couple that with robotics and the technologies in robotics. It's very easy to get scared. The advances.
That's bound to happen.
Another thing that I can talk about is cybernetics. Almost Human incorporates cybernetic enhancements where characters possess artificial limbs and implants to enhance their abilities. This, I think, is the centerpiece for cyberpunk. And this is
it was very cyberpunk. We recognize that right away.
Yeah. I mean, I think that cyberpunk in its inception is a thought experiment that has led us to cybernetics. Real world examples of prosthetic limbs, brain computer interfaces, neural implants. There's all kinds of research on this, and it's very fascinating that, especially when we look at something like Neuralink, that the world of cyberpunk is so close to our real world.
Yeah.
So, wow. Should I continue? I mean, there's so much in here.
Self-evident.
So, I'm sorry?
is self-evident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with ChatGPT has come on very quickly, and I think that we are going to, once they crack some of these things, see a lot of things that have, just remained the sort of pie in the sky of the cybernetic appreciating community come to the fore. And I mean, it's first going to be invaluable to people who have lost limbs or other organs, like sensory organs. And once those technologies are used to help those people, then it may become something that people want to, that once the technology outperforms or enhances, human bits version 1.0, then people will start considering replacing what they were born with better stuff. And that's when we'll really get into the whole cyberpunk life is now kind of situation that is foretold, as it were.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue is basically connecting machines to your nervous system and getting them to function the way you want them to. So
yeah,
once they crack that, I mean, it'll just take off.
I strongly believe that for cybernetics to work, we're going to have to need this equipment, these devices that we will be installing on our bodies. They will need to have AI using ML to kind of help the device integrate with our physiology. I always thought about that. I don't know how do you guys feel about that, but in my mind, is the only way that we can get this device is intelligent enough to work as an organ, as a limb, as
an extension,
as an extension of us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's two major issues. One is connecting. The other one is rejection. So putting anything that's non-self into the body causes the immune system to react against it. So there's going to be needing some therapy in there to stop your body from rejecting or attempting to reject the implants.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's been ongoing since they produced the first pacemakers and artificial hearts and all those sorts of things that, they've been working on but haven't really perfected yet as far as, replacement body parts and things are concerned.
That always gets me to think about quantum theory and, like the quantum computers. And, obviously we're very far off from this. But if we can get to the point where we can use quantum computers, are we able to create implants so adaptable to our human physiology because they can project what, I mean, they're talking about also medicine interaction when the creation of medicine, the creation on how they can the ability that we'll be able to look at reactions at such a granular level using that kind of technology. Again, this is all conjecture because we're not there yet, but the way that this computing could be done based on the logic gates leads you to believe that this is something that this type of computers will be able to do. Not only mapping the entire human body, the DNA, but also coming up with, medicines that have no harmful reactions to the body and treat an illness. And having said that, the same can be said for cybernetic implants, where this same technology that is being used to research medicine that doesn't cause any adverse reaction to the body could also be used for cybernetic creation. I mean, that's just my thoughts on it, and we're not there yet, but I can kind of think about that based on what I've been hearing about the technology.
Well, it's like I said, you've got to have some idea of what you want to achieve and imagine a solution before you can work your way towards it. And science fiction has that place not only in my heart but in my head as a place where you go looking for ideas that other people have had about where the future should go or where the future could go. And I'm sure that people around the world who've had their favorite science fiction show that had some future technology or use for technology that's being developed now have seen that and been inspired and got into that field thanks to that show. So I really feel like, just like, people watch medical dramas and get all excited for medicine and go and study medicine and become doctors. People watch sci-fi and go off and become inventors and leaders, leading us into the future with developments in technology.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, anything else anyone here would like to add when it comes to science?
I got one thing.
Hmm?
Please don't replace me with the chatbot.
And just so the listeners get the point, we are 3 hosts, and it would kind of be cool to have the 4th host be an AI.
He says that now, but
I'm just
going to replace me.
It's going to be called 3 hoes and an AI.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so that is our show.
Thanks for listening to I Am Robert.
So thank you so much for listening to our show. We really appreciate you being with us every week, interacting with us on Twitter, reaching out to us on Discord. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us. We hope that you can come back next week for future episodes. So thank you, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye for now.